On October 1st, 2024, something was born that hadn't existed on Earth for 10,000 years. In a secret facility somewhere in the United States, 2 wolf pups took their first breath. But these weren't ordinary wolves. According to the scientists who created them, these animals were dire wolves, the apex predators that once terrorized Ice Age America, the same wolves that inspired the monstrous beasts in Game of Thrones. But here's where it gets controversial. Half the scientific community is celebrating this as humanity's first successful de-extinction. The other half, they're calling it a dangerous lie. So what's the truth? Are dire wolves really back from the dead? And if they are, should we be excited or terrified? I'm about to show you something that will make you question everything you thought you knew about extinction. Before we dive into one of the most controversial scientific experiments of 2025, let's talk about what dire wolves actually were, because the reality is somehow more terrifying than the fantasy. Forget everything Game of Thrones taught you. The real dire wolf was far more fascinating and far more dangerous than any TV show could capture. The original nightmare. Picture this. It's 1854, and workers are dredging the Ohio River near Evansville, Indiana. They pull up a fossilized jawbone, massive, with teeth that seem too large to be real. A geologist named Joseph Norwood sends it to Joseph Leidy, America's top paleontologist at the time. When Leidy examines it, he realizes something shocking. This isn't just a big wolf. This is something entirely different. He names it Canis primivus, the ancient dog. But 4 years later, after more discoveries, he gives it a name that would echo through history. Canis dirus, the dire wolf. Fast forward to 1908. Paleontologist John Campbell Merriam begins excavating the Rancho La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles. What he finds is absolutely staggering. Thousands upon thousands of dire wolf bones. Over 4,000 individual wolves trapped in the asphalt over tens of thousands of years. More dire wolves than any other species found there. Think about that for a second. Why were so many dire wolves getting trapped? Because they were pack hunters going after prey that had already fallen into the tar. They were so aggressive, so driven by the hunt that they followed their prey to their own doom. So what made dire wolves so terrifying? First, the size. These weren't just big wolves, they were massive. 6 feet from nose to tail, 38 inches tall at the shoulder, weighing up to 150 pounds. That's 25% heavier than the largest modern gray wolves. But size wasn't their only advantage. Their skulls were wider and more massive. Their jaws, capable of delivering a bite 129% more powerful than a modern wolf. Think about that. More than twice the crushing force. Their teeth were huge, built for cracking bones and tearing through thick hide. These weren't precision hunters. These were bone crushers. Scientists examining their fossils found something telling. Many dire wolf teeth showed extreme wear and breakage. They weren't just killing prey. They were competing for every scrap, chewing through bone to get every last bit of nutrition. They had shorter, stockier legs than modern wolves, which meant they weren't built for speed chases. They were built for power, for taking down prey that was bigger, tougher, and more dangerous than anything alive today. What did dire wolves hunt? Ice Age horses, giant ground sloths, ancient bison that weighed 3,500 pounds. And when they got the chance, young mammoths. They were the enforcers of the Ice Age ecosystem. Pack hunters that could bring down almost anything. Then, about 10,000 years ago, they vanished. For decades, scientists assumed they were just another casualties of the Ice Age extinction. When climate change killed off the megafauna, dire wolves starved and disappeared. But in 2021, scientists made a shocking discovery that changed everything we thought we knew about dire wolves. The shocking truth. In 2021, an international team of researchers did something that had never been done before. They successfully extracted and sequenced DNA from 5 dire wolf fossils. Some of these fossils were over 50,000 years old. What they discovered stunned the scientific world. Dire wolves weren't closely related to gray wolves at all. For over 160 years, scientists had assumed dire wolves were basically giant gray wolves, cousins, maybe even ancestors. The fossils looked similar enough, but the DNA told a completely different story. Dire wolves and gray wolves diverged between 5.7 and 6 million years ago. That's not cousins. That's like comparing humans to gorillas. They were so genetically different, they couldn't even interbreed. In fact, dire wolves were more closely related to African jackals than to North American wolves. This discovery was so revolutionary that scientists reclassified the entire species. It's no longer Canis dirus, the terrible dog. It's now Enochaeon dirus, the terrible wolf, its own genus, its own evolutionary branch that existed for millions of years and then vanished completely. And here's the tragic part. Their specialization is what killed them. When the climate warmed and the megafauna disappeared, dire wolves couldn't adapt. They were built to hunt giants. Without those giants, they starved. Meanwhile, gray wolves, more adaptable, able to hunt smaller prey, capable of interbreeding with other canids, survived and thrived. The dire wolf's strength became its downfall. They were too specialized, too perfect for a world that no longer existed. For 10,000 years, they were gone, completely extinct. No descendants, no genetic legacy, just bones in museums and tar pits. Until October 1st, 2024. The resurrection. While the world was focused on Colossal Biosciences' headline-grabbing efforts to bring back the woolly mammoth, something else was happening in their laboratories. Something they hadn't told anyone about. A team led by Dr. Beth Shapiro, one of the world's leading experts in ancient DNA, was working on what they would later call the world's first successful de-extinction. They had obtained two incredibly well-preserved dire wolf fossils. One was 13,000 years old. The other, over 72,000 years old. Using cutting-edge sequencing technology, they reconstructed the dire wolf genome. Not the complete genome, ancient DNA is never complete, but enough to identify the key differences between dire wolves and modern gray wolves. Here's where it gets fascinating. Despite being separated by 6 million years of evolution, dire wolves and gray wolves shared 99.5% of their DNA. It's that last 0.5% that made all the difference. The team identified 20 specific genetic changes across just 14 genes that seemed to control the dire wolf's most distinctive traits. These genes were responsible for the massive jaw muscles that gave them their crushing bite force, the stockier build that made them powerhouses instead of marathon runners, the larger teeth designed for bone crushing, the powerful shoulders that could wrestle down megafauna, and their distinctive pale coat that set them apart from the darker gray wolves. But here's the controversial part. They didn't actually use ancient dire wolf DNA to create these animals. Instead, they used the ancient DNA as a blueprint. They took cells from living gray wolves and used CRISPR gene editing technology to rewrite those 14 genes to match what the dire wolf genome showed. Only 15 of the 20 changes were based directly on dire wolf DNA. The other 5, those were modifications to create the light-colored coat, using genes from domestic dogs. They edited gray wolf blood cells, transferred the modified nuclei into dog eggs, and created embryos. 45 embryos per attempt. These embryos were implanted into surrogate mothers, large mixed-breed hound dogs chosen for their size and health. 8 transfer attempts, 8 surrogate mothers. And after 2 months of pregnancy, on October 1st, 2024, 2 male pups were born via cesarean section. They named them Romulus and Remus, after the mythological founders of Rome, who were raised by a she-wolf. 3 months later, on January 30th, 2025, a third pup was born, a female. They named her Khaleesi, after the Game of Thrones character. At 6 months old, Romulus and Remus already weighed 80 pounds. They're projected to reach 150 pounds at full maturity, right in line with ancient dire wolf specimens. But it's not just the size. These animals have white coats, something gray wolves don't typically have. Their heads are wider. Their shoulders are more powerful. Their jaws are already noticeably different. And behaviorally, they're nothing like domestic dogs or even captive-bred wolves. They howled at just 2 weeks old. They display natural stalking and hunting behaviors. And most tellingly, they're terrified of humans. Unlike socialized wolves that can grow comfortable with handlers, these animals maintain their distance. They retreat when approached. The scientists who created them had to hand raise them because their surrogate mother became too attentive, disrupting their feeding and sleep schedules. They live now in a secret 2,000-acre facility somewhere in the United States. On April 7, 2025, Colossal Biosciences announced to the world, for the first time in human history, we have successfully restored a once eradicated species through de-extinction. The internet exploded. Headlines everywhere proclaimed the return of the dire wolf. And that's when the scientific community went to war. The controversy. Dr. Julie Meechan, a leading paleontologist who has spent her career studying wolves, put it bluntly, they are genetically modified gray wolves, not dire wolves. Dr. Philip Seddon and Dr. Nick Rawlins from the University of Otago were even harsher. They pointed out that dire wolves had diverged from gray wolves by up to 6 million years. Just 20 genetic changes across 14 genes? That's nowhere near enough. This is a genetically modified hybrid, they said, not a resurrection. Dr. Adam Boyko from Cornell called them functional versions of dire wolves. In other words, wolves that look like and might behave like dire wolves, but aren't actually dire wolves. MIT Technology Review put the project on their list of the 8 worst technology flops of 2025. Even Paul Knoepfler, a respected stem cell researcher, called the announcement toxic and harmful to science, and said it damages public trust. But Colossal Biosciences fired back. So many experts are demanding that species are defined solely by their DNA, the company said. That's insane. Even evolutionary biologists can't agree on species definitions. Mammoth species are defined by teeth ridges, ancient bison by horn shapes. Beth Shapiro, the chief scientist, argued, "We aren't trying to bring something back that's 100% genetically identical. Our goal is to create functional copies, animals that carry the key traits that made that species distinct." And she has a point. When you look at Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi, they have more dire wolf characteristics than anything that's existed for 10,000 years. But here's what keeps me up at night. Should we even be doing this? These animals have no ecosystem to return to. The megafauna they evolved to hunt are extinct. There's nowhere for them to go except captivity. Some scientists worry this distracts from real conservation, protecting the species that still exist and are dying right now. But others point out that the technology developed here has already led to breakthroughs. Colossal used the same techniques to clone 4 critically endangered red wolves, animals with fewer than 24 individuals left in the wild. That technology could save species on the brink. So are dire wolves really back? Honestly, it depends on how you define extinction. These 3 animals carry traits that haven't existed for 10,000 years, but they're not genetically identical to the original species. There's something in between, a scientific achievement that sparked as much controversy as excitement. What we know for certain is this: we've crossed a line. Extinction might not be permanent anymore, and whether that's humanity's greatest achievement or most dangerous mistake, only time will tell. What do you think? Are Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi really dire wolves, or just very convincing imitations? Let me know in the comments below.